Guys, this is Dr. Alexandra Greenhill from My Best Helper. They're a startup here in Vancouver that's been around since 2011, right? When you guys came out of winning the Vancouver Startup Weekend. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about My Best Helper. But she has two challenges on, I believe, and we are going to be talking about them. We're talking about My Best Helper, talking about Vancouver, and then letting you guys ask her any questions you might have. So without further ado, Alex, maybe you can tell us a little about your company.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys, for joining the Hangout. And it's very exciting to do this virtual hackathon. It's my first. I've done many different hackathons, including the hackathon north of 60th parallel. So the one that we did in Whitehorse is the most northern part of Canada that you can do a hackathon in. And they didn't have enough developers, so we actually flew in 7 developers from Vancouver to participate. But people there were very excited. I think the city has 15,000 people, and they did 15 teams, which was pretty cool. So I am a medical doctor, and I used to code in high school, and that's kind of stayed in love with technology, and have built many electronic health records and telemedicine applications. But then I decided to focus on something very practical, which I had a problem with. I have 3 children, and I just couldn't believe that it was so difficult to figure out childcare. And so I went to a hackathon and I pitched the idea. We ended up with a team of 9, and we ended up winning first place. And then people said, you should really build this. And so for the purposes of this project, you don't need to sign on to our existing website or anything like that. What we want to do is we use Hackathon to test completely new ways of doing things. And so our current product works really well. We convert crazy amounts, like each step converts 95% of users. And so it's been tested, like A/B tested like crazy. And so a lot of the designers look at our product and they're like, why is this like this? And you're like, because users like it. And so we're always looking at how can we innovate. And over the last 3 years, 50% of our traffic is now mobile, and it was 30% last year. I think it's going to be 80% next year. And I'd like to come up with something kind of out of the box, completely different for how people create, explain what they need, and then they find what they need on our site. And so this is where, turning to the creativity of compressed time, different people looking at it and how they would do it was interesting to me. Awesome. And I'm a very open and direct person, so I'd love to do some sort of a AMA, ask me anything about technology, Vancouver, healthcare, Canada. Just doesn't have to be just about My Best Helper. But of course, My Best Helper is my baby. I have 3 children, and this is the 4th. So I'm happy to talk about my company all day long. But if you have any other questions, let me know. And an interesting fact is we actually recruited our chief technology officer out of Poland. He contacted us on Angel List, and he said, I'd like to join your team. And had done something very similar in Poland. We said, okay, let's see how this works. And it's worked out great. He's been with us for 2 years, and he's fantastic. And we're looking at actually bringing somebody out of, where is it, Ilya? Curitiba. Getting a Brazilian talented developer into Canada as soon as we can, because we've Skyped and interviewed and exchanged over the last few months, but he seems really awesome, and I think it's going to be a real win-win.
That's great. That's great news. Yeah, and he's actually from VanHack, guys. So VanHack premium member, Andre, that's his name. So we won't say more than that because it's still a process going on, but it's very cool to see it working, right? So Alex is in the process of hiring him and sponsoring the work visa. So that's fantastic, Alex. I'll also leave it up to the floor guys. If you have a question, either just unmute your mic and talk, or if you could raise your hand virtually, there's that, if you click on manage participants, I think it is, or participants, you can see a button for to raise your hand. I'm not sure where it is on your side because I can see only the admin panel. So if you want to do that, or you can just type your question as well. So maybe my question kind of is like, what are you looking for in this challenge? Like what does success look like for you, Alex, in the My Best Helper Challenge?
I think success to us is very flexible on this because we're a team that used to experimenting. So we love new ideas. And so I'll give you an example. We created this website, and I'm going to just type it in, because one of our developers said, hey, can we repurpose how our site is organized and become an organizer for caregivers all over the world? And so like an Expedia for care. And so we built this website in kind of 2 weeks, just on the cuff. And we didn't have a preset idea of exactly what it had to look. We borrowed a lot of pre-existing frameworks and images and just, let's see if it works, like a real MVP. And so for us, here would be, if you're thinking and self-censoring and saying, nah, they're probably not going to like my idea because it's too crazy, I actually want to hear it because we love crazy ideas. We love off the wall. What if you did something in a completely different way? Where before, remember how search engines used to work and you had Yahoo and Alta Vista with, lists and lists and lists. And then Google came in and said, white page, one little screen, entry point, and said, I'm feeling lucky. And so what if we actually said, families have a problem. I need to find somebody to take care of my loved one. And until now, everyone's done exactly the same thing. 100 questions, right? How often, when, what day, etc. And what if we could actually make it into a completely visual intake where you just click on images that have, pictures of, the different components. So you don't have to type anything, and it's much more fun to answer it. It's almost like playing a video game.
Very cool. Awesome, guys. So anyone have any questions for Alex? It doesn't have to be about the challenge or her company. It can also be just for you guys to know, Alex is one of the kind of most involved people in the Vancouver technology scene and knows a lot of other companies and just how things work in general. So if you have any questions for her about Canada and Vancouver as well, feel free to ask. Everybody is shy. You guys can just type if you're worried about speaking.
It might be Ilya.
Sorry?
They might be looking for how to unmute.
Okay, yeah. Well, Gabriel has a question here.
Okay, so I have a question. When you said that it's important to have a visual approach, do you mean like you see pictures of the helper and then you just swipe if you accept them or not?
Well, we've thought about the Tinder approach, so you can kind of swipe left and right. But I meant around describing what you're looking for. And so, if I'm looking for a nanny in my family, I want somebody who is likes to go hiking, likes sports, and like arts. And so what if instead of putting those words, I put in images that represented that? And so, some of the CAPTCHA nowadays ask you to choose from the 9 images, the ones that have waterfalls. So what if we showed them 9 images and we said, pick the 9 images that appeal the most to you. And we associated certain helpers to those images, or we simply asked the helpers to also pick 9 images. And we just matched the people who chose the same images. And what if that was a way better way of matching them than having them answer 100 questions?
Okay, I get it. So it's not like you're watching pictures of the person that you're going to hire. It's just random pictures of activities that you like doing or that you like your family to do.
Right. And I think that our concern is that often people judge the book by the cover. They look at a picture of a caregiver and that is usually taken on a cell phone. It doesn't look great. And they're like, nah, this person's probably not going to be okay. And that is a crazy way of choosing someone. You're not choosing them based on what they look. You should be choosing them for who they are, what they like, and how they behave.
Yeah, exactly. Or vice versa. You can have like a lousy professional take studio pictures and have great pictures and be a lousy professional.
Correct. And so the idea would be is that if people like the same books and the same movies and the same activities, then maybe they should talk. And so we nanny shared once, and the one the nanny share started is, I really like The Fifth Element as a movie. You know, the one about the space, the science fiction one. And so we were in a play date with a whole bunch of other parents, and one of the other couples said, oh my God, that's my favorite movie too. And next thing you know is we are nanny sharing together, and we had a blast, and you know, everything about us was so similar just because we liked that movie.
Nice. That's okay. Really interesting way to look at it. Thanks, Andre, for your question.
Hey, whoever said Big Bada Boom, I love you. This is awesome.
Is that from the movie Big Bada Boom? I think it is, right?
Big Bada Boom.
Yeah, I remember watching that movie. It's pretty funny. Yeah, so Gabriel has a question. Gabriel, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question in voice. Go ahead, Gabriel. Are you there, Gabriel? Maybe your microphone's not working. Yes. Can you say something? I think your microphone might not be working. I've unmuted you. In any case, I'll read it out loud. So I think I'm the only one with crazy ideas or a different way of thinking, but I'm a designer. I always need a programmer to work with me. Almost no one wants to pick a designer because anyone can draw. Okay, Gabriel, I think that's not true. Maybe, Alex, you can talk about your impression of designers and the importance of designers.
Designers are just so core, and in fact now the thinking is that designers rule the world, because you can build the most interesting and useful app, but if people don't like what it looks like, you're toast. And so, you know, one example is HipChat and Atlassian. I don't know how many of you know about HipChat and have used it, but it's a very good functional software, but Slack is just killing it. And Slack is killing it because there's a Vancouver company, the Victoria-based company, that essentially redesigned it and made it just pretty. It's not even as functional as HipChat is, I would argue, but it's enjoyable to look at, and it has elements around, you know, those funny messages that you get when you sign in and all that. And that was a designer who kind of thought about the brand and the experience and what do they stand for. And they said, oh, we want to be the friendly company. We want to be productive and friendly. And how can we choose colors and positioning and make it super easy for people to use it? And they're just killing it. Yeah. And so we work a lot with designers. One of our advisory board members is a designer firm, and we test all the design. So to us, design is the same way as IDEO calls it. So I don't know if you guys know IDEO out of San Francisco, the design thinking. And it's all about how can this be made super easy, very intuitive, and beautiful. So it has to be practical first and beautiful as well.
Yeah, that's so true, and I agree so much with Alex. I think that, you know, maybe in Brazil, Gabriel, people don't appreciate designers as much as they should, but definitely here, designers are very much sought after. And have a lot of influence in the creation of products. So
well, and it's true that 5 years ago that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
so I think that you're going to see that change, because people are kind of into building, and then they realize that, oh, we built all of this, but nobody wants to use it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Wait, I thought there was another question somewhere that I saw somebody else put up.
I don't know. If anyone else
here in Brazil, all developers work alone because they can't do design. How does it work in Canada? Oftentimes, one of the things we do with design is we use a bootstrap kind of framework to just get it going and make sure the functionality works. And then we work with a designer to make it more interesting and more beautiful. Because again, our philosophy is that it needs to work first. We tried the opposite, which is make it beautiful and then kind of make sure it works, and it doesn't work. So we tested both approaches, and so one of the things that we do sometimes, we do internal hackathons for our team twice a year. And so we're a team of 7. Some of our former employees come as well. So usually there's about 10 or 12 people. And we split into 3 or 4 teams. And the way the teams split, sometimes one of the teams doesn't have developers. What we do is we do a proto hack. So we design a whole bunch of screens and put them into InVision and animate it to show what this would look like. And then send it to real people and say, would you guys use it? What do you think? And if they like it, then we get the developers to code it.
Nice.
We're doing a lot more of that now.
Yeah, user testing first before developing it.
Right. So the designer essentially builds an app. We use existing software to test if it works or not, but it's all fake. It's not real. And then if it works, then we get the developers to code it.
That's awesome. I think Ellie, who said that's so cool, is also a designer. I've seen her talking a lot about design, right, Ellie? Cool. Do you want to say hi, Ellie? Talk a little about yourself. Are you have sure. Awesome. Cool. Go ahead and unmute yourself. I think you can.
Hey, nice meeting you. I'm really excited for this challenge because too little people say that we can do crazy stuff and it's cool, it's awesome. In UX, we try throwing the box away and creating new stuff, and it's so cool to see a company believing in different things so that the user don't feel bored. Just, oh my God, I'm gonna click Facebook login and here's the app and that's all. So it's very nice to see that you worry about that. And I really like that you created this app because you worried about people and caregiving and kids, and that's really amazing. So I just want to say that.
Well, thank you, Ellie. And for all of you designers out there, if you want to submit a prototype kind of that is just based on InVision, I don't know if you guys know InVision. I'm going to put it in the notes. But we use InVision a lot. And the other one that we use is, I'll find a link and I'll show you, but it allows you to put different screens together and show how they would work. In healthcare, one of the problems in Canada, at least, is electronic medical records where they put patient data. They suck. They look like they were designed in the 70s. And it's tiny little boxes and text, and it's just completely not user-friendly. And a couple of years ago, I was chief medical officer of a company out of Vancouver called Medio. And so what the Medio app did is it does telemedicine, but it made the entire design of how doctors used it completely different. And so while doctors usually refused to use the prescribing functions and whatnot of the other EMRs, 100% of our doctors used this one because it was so easy. And what we made it is that for prescribing is we allowed them to just type it in. And so a lot of people said, oh, they'll make mistakes. And you're like, but they already write the prescription. So if they type the prescription, what's the difference? And so we found that it was 0 mistakes when they wrote it out, but lots of mistakes if you ask them to do check different things. And so spending the time to design beautiful healthcare apps was so core to getting adoption that I became hooked.
Awesome. So I think Fernando had a question. Fernando. I'm not sure which one, if it was, Goulart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead, Fernando.
Okay. Well, actually, nowadays I work for a huge bank here in São Paulo, and I also have some. Although I am a developer, I work with IT in IT department. I'm also have I have a lot of business questions and business view of the company. So my questions are about the sustainable, do you have if I understood well, you have like an startup, okay,
Mhm.
in Canada, and how startups work in Canada? Do you have? Did you raise investments? Are there investors? Is it financial sustainable? What about the incomes? Because I know that startups some have a lot of costs, and like some, don't know if the incomes are greater than your costs. Can you please tell me about the financial facts and aspects of a startup in Canada, please?
Great question. So there's pluses and minuses to being a Canadian startup, and we usually compare ourselves to the US because down south, very close to us, is a big country with lots of money. And so, Seattle is 2 hours drive away from here, maybe 3 if you drive slowly. And then there's San Francisco, which is a 3-hour flight from here. So we have a lot of startups, like Slack is actually headquartered in Vancouver, but they have big connections to the Valley and they have a big team there as well. And there's many other ones. Why they do that is because for every dollar you can raise in Canada, you can raise 10 times more in the US. That said, is if your team is in the US, it's also more expensive to have a team there. So everything's more expensive because you have to pay for healthcare and the developers and real estate. And so you raise more money, but you end up costing more money. And so it's a little bit of a, no one knows exactly what is the perfect path. But I would say that there's 3 different types of companies that people usually call startups, but they don't necessarily meet my definition of a startup. So we are a startup running after $1 billion global idea, right? There's a lot of unknowns into what we're doing. We're trying to break the model and say, plus, it's a little bit better than Craigslist. What if we could create something that is so dramatically better that it completely transforms how people do it? And we're not there yet. We've made progress, we've made big improvements, but we don't stop where we are now. If we were to stop and just grow what we have now, it's going to be a product that's, 10 plus, a little bit better than the competition, and we don't want it to do that. And so we keep raising money and investing it back into the engineering team. And so out of the 7 people on our team, 4 are engineers. Why? Because we want to build something that's completely different. Then there's companies that do a version of something that already exists. So our former CTO decided to do a monthly subscription box for cat owners. And so if you own a cat, you get cat food and a cat toy every month in the box. And so there's already a service like that for feminine products, for razor blades, for baby toys, for dog food. And so in his case, he didn't need to raise money. He just needed to build the product. And his customer, if he doesn't have revenue within 6 months, then something's wrong. And he's just growing his user base. But everything about that market is already known. You know exactly how to package the boxes, what the usual percentage of conversion is. There's a whole bunch of people who built tools to make it easier in terms of fulfillment of orders and shipment. So he doesn't have to invent a lot of things. And so there's no point in raising a lot of money because he's got a good business and making good money, but it's not a innovation startup. So a lot of people call a small business a startup. And I think that that's wrong. I think you should reserve startups for the companies that are trying to do something that is substantially different than something else, either because they're applying it to a different market, and that's valid. Nannies in Brazil, one of the people on Slack explained to me are completely different than the nannies in Canada. If you're going to launch My Best Helper, maybe we need to raise money because we need to change everything. But everyone else, might not need to raise. investors are funny because they all run after each other. They publish big blog posts saying everybody should think independently, but they don't do that. Raising money is really, really hard. We've raised between government grants, winning awards that gave us money, and kind of private investors, we've raised almost $1 million. But it's you're going to have 20 conversations in a month, and none of them end up being an investor. And then you're going to run into somebody at the conference, and like 5 days later, they've written you a check. So you have zero idea exactly who and how will support you, but you have to just keep telling your story to anybody who would listen. And people come together, and if they like what you do, it works. Does that answer your question?
Fernando.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Alex, can I add actually something to that? I think it's important to highlight how much easier it is to do business in Canada than Brazil. And one of the reasons I say that, not only because it takes like a couple of days to open a company for very like $100 or $500, but also because there's a lot of government grants and government programs. So maybe we can talk about like SHRED and IRAP. So, because I don't think anyone here knows what those are.
Yeah, and so the Canadian government's made a real commitment to supporting innovation. And so if you are really doing one of those startups the way I defined it, so something really different, there is lots of money to be had to ask to support. And so there's a tax credit. You get special money to hire young graduates. And so we like young people on our team. And so we just hired a new one here in Canada who had just graduated, and they don't have any work experience, but we can help them with that. But what they have is they have energy, they have new ideas, new perspectives, and their salary for the first 6 months is going to be covered by a government grant. It's a win-win because they're not going to be as productive as hiring somebody at the same salary who has 5 years of experience. But so we get a break on paying them, but they get an ability to have job experience. One of our team members was just hired by Microsoft in Seattle because they went kind of from us to the big leagues. And that's okay because, we see that as a success for our team.
Very cool.
A lot of people in Canada, to your question, Fernando, get lost on the way to success because a lot of people give you pressure. And so the trick with grants is to know which ones to say yes to and which ones to refuse. Because sometimes it's a lot of paperwork and it's a lot of kind of due diligence. And if you spend all of your time on that, you can get distracted. And so that's the big danger. But even compared to when we started, there's so many more support systems and mechanisms to building your startup here in Canada. This now Spring does an online university about how to do all of these things. And so before you had to knock on a lot of doors and find out, and now there's places you can go and in 3 to 4 weeks learn everything you need about starting a business and online using technology and just go.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely really easy from like a bureaucracy point of view, from a support point of view to start a business here. What you really have to focus on, of course, is solving a problem that people care about and helping and finding customers, which I think you have to do anyway, right? But I think the government support here and the ecosystem support here makes it so that's like the only thing you should worry about, or like the main thing. Whereas I remember when I was in Brazil, like get a lot of bureaucracy with banks and lawyers and things like that. That kind of stop innovation. Not that there's not a great startup scene in Brazil as well. So yeah, cool. Any other questions?
One thing our government is very good is once we bring you here, so it takes a lot of documentation to convince them that we need to bring somebody here. But once you're here, getting your residency and permits and all the other things in place is super easy. And so we're excited to have people from overseas on our team because I think that they add more to Canada. And one of the things that we explain to government is by bringing somebody who was trained elsewhere, you increase essentially the DNA diversity of our technology scene. You bring in different perspectives, and you bring in people who understand big markets. Because as we want to expand to Brazil, we have somebody in-house who knows the market. As we want to expand to Europe, we have somebody on our team who's been there and done that.
Nice, so true. Any other questions, guys? Yeah. Alex, this has been really great, by the way. People, I don't know if you saw, Emerson was very happy about this, wants to come back.
Always happy to come back. You know, you guys don't know that, but Ilya is one of the people who just kind of ran into the Vancouver tech scene. And, you know, he should get the title of my best helper because he's helped everybody.
Yeah, it's my goal. It's solving up for all people's problems. You won't have any yourself. Something along that lines. Not that that's possible to not have problems, but philosophy. For sure, Alex. I think people really enjoyed it, and I think it's a good time. It's been about half an hour. I think we should let people get back to working on the challenge. I guess people can add you on LinkedIn. I'll just pull up your LinkedIn here.
Sure, absolutely. And happy to answer any questions offline. You know, even like in the future, if you're like, hey, if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you. But if I do know, I'm happy to help. The one thing I was going to ask is if anyone wants to work on our project, please don't sign up for our website because it's a live website. We have real users. This is not, 30,000 fake profiles. These are people who are going to get notified that somebody needs help, and then they're going to start responding to you. So don't sign up. If you have questions about how our website works, I can send you screens, but I honestly don't want you to do what we're doing right now. I want you to come up with a completely new thing, and I'm almost done sending the document that explains a little bit of the kind of questions that the intake should cover. I apologize. I really had a crazy last 2 weeks. Ilya's been on my case to send it in earlier, but there was nothing I could do. Between children and work, it was a little crazy. But I will send it up. And my email is very easy. It's alex@mybesthelper. And so, people who are on our team, we kind of have these, I'm going to say the last thing is we're a team that is 4G because we want to do something that's good because it solves a real problem. Great in how it does it, really innovative, global, and that's why we're involved in a program like this one. And then giving, so a for-profit that wants to do a difference in the world. And then we're recently coming up with a different model that somebody else shared with us that kind of seems to fit, which is the 4H, right? Which is happy, because it's important to stay happy, helpful, because we want to help each other and others. And then humble, so it doesn't matter how much you've accomplished or what you've done, you remain approachable and easygoing. And then hungry not because you're physically hungry, but because you want to do more and accomplish other things. You have this hunger to learn, hunger to do things. And so that's our 4G meets 4H kind of framework.
That's cool. All right, guys. Well, maybe we can give a big round of applause. I don't know if you guys can clap with everyone being muted, but we can visually see it. Thanks so much, Alex. We'll put this on our YouTube channel and we'll put it up on Slack for everyone to see. And let's go build a sweet onboarding process. Think outside the box.
Thanks, Ilya. Thanks, guys. Obrigada.
Awesome. Good night, guys. Bye-bye.